You are not alone, and it is not random. Self-sabotage is real. It is sneaky, and it is stopping you from the life you know you could have. Well, tonight we are ripping the mask of self-doubt, fear of success, and the hidden habits that keep us stuck with master NLP practitioner, life coach, and public speaker, Baguette Yollett. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me here this evening.
Well, it is such a pleasure having you, because as you walked in, you brought that beautiful energy with you.
Thank you kindly.
And it is so good to see you. Yeah, well, you can catch the gorgeous Baguette on our Facebook page right now as we go live as well. So yes, live on Facebook. And as you listen to Baguette, you'll want to connect with us. You'll want to talk to us. You'll want to comment. So remember to send your comments or your opinions, whatever it may be, questions even, to 071-613-7803. And, you know, we have so much to talk about, your own life's journey. We'd love to hear that. But let's start off by asking you, what is self-sabotage?
Great question, because it's such a common thing that we do, isn't it? So obviously, we don't usually choose to self-sabotage consciously. It is more than often an unconscious behavior. And what we're doing is we're actually creating obstacles for ourselves, despite the very fact that there's some desired goal or outcome that we would really love to achieve. And in doing that, of course, we impoverish ourselves of that happiness, you know, and just that great feeling of achievement. And Zakia, it's oftentimes it's centered around conflict. Okay, so there's usually parts of us, you know, one part. Have you ever had that feeling where there's a part of you that wants to do something, you know, and you get this idea or whatever it might be, and then there's this other part of you that sort of talks you out of it and says, oh, but
all the time.
I can't do that. That's for them. You know, they can start their own business or they can do this, but me, not so much. And so it's that inner critic. And so just that having those different parts of us creates that inner conflict, and that's where we get stuck in this sort of negative loop, if I can put it that way. So the thing is that it's not about being weak. It is usually some protective mechanism, and it's become maladaptive because, of course, it's preventing us from achieving the very thing we set out to. So it's very frustrating.
So could it also be lack of confidence?
It could be. It can show up in so many sneaky little ways.
Sneaky, that's the word, right?
Absolutely.
How does one experience this? I know you mentioned that self-doubt, you know, should I, shouldn't I, kind of thing, yeah?
So again, you know, we can procrastinate, you know, when there's deadlines looming, you know, it can show up as procrastination. It can show up as unhealthy, should I say, habits, you know, whether you're wanting to exercise or, you know, eat better. In relationships as well, you know, it shows up quite often. I've had a lot of experience there myself. I'll share a bit later when we get there. But it's really any sort of thought or behavior or emotion that's, you know, moving us essentially away from what it is that we truly want.
So there you are. She's describing you. If she is, talk to us on 071-613-7803. And also remember, you can send us your comments on Facebook. We are live on Lotus FM's Facebook page right now. And the beaming smile comes through, which is great because I think all of us need this good energy in our lives. Baguette?
Well, I am a huge advocate for energy. You know, it's interesting because, of course, I'm working with people and emotions all day long. But what is emotion? It's energy in motion. So our energy, I think so often we forget that, and how ironic, you know, here I sit in this beautiful radio booth, and I often use this analogy that we are actually all our own radio stations. Okay. Stay with me, listen to this idea. Yeah. So we all have our own little signal, and we are, of course, vibrating on a frequency. Now, we can have high vibrational energy frequencies or low vibrational, okay? And if you're wanting to tune into Lotus FM, you certainly cannot go tuning into, you know, 5 FM or any other station in order to get there. You've got to dial in directly to the frequency that you're wanting to get into. Because like energy attracts like energy. So it's fascinating when you start learning the tools of, well, how do I get myself up and out when I'm in those low vibrational sort of energy spaces? Because let's face it, we all experience that from time to time, don't we?
Absolutely, absolutely, we do. And if you say you don't, you're lying.
Absolutely, I agree with you. It's the natural law of rhythm. And I think what's beautiful about that is that nothing stays the same. So we need to know how to just sort of ride out those lows and enjoy the highs, because it's going to be that rhythm. You know, the tide, you know, it comes in and it goes out again. Day follows night. It's not eternal darkness. The sun will rise again. So when we just learn how to better equip ourselves, that's when we're setting ourselves up for success. And that's what really excites me about, you know, getting to create positive change with all of the people that I work with.
Wow. So right now, I got to tell all of you, you are tuned to the right station.
Yes, sorry.
that has got a lot of energy. That's what I'm trying to say. You know, it's got a lot of energy. It's got a lot of positivity. And this is our talk therapy. Forget, we have it on a Monday, talk therapy, because when it comes to talking through your problems, you know it works.
Absolutely.
Right?
A problem shared is a problem halved, so the saying goes, right?
And that is so true. So this is our talk therapy on Talk at 7 with me, Zakia Ahmed Siddiqi. So what are the most common root causes of self-sabotage?
Oh, there are so often it is linked to childhood experience, past experiences and traumas. And if I may, perhaps I can just talk you through the way that the unconscious and the conscious mind all sort of work together. Would that be okay? It's going to take a few minutes, but I think it'll
super okay.
I think it'll be very helpful for our listeners.
Yeah. And remember, you don't have to ask permission to share things that are positive and help us understand ourselves better.
Okay, thank you very much, because I know that I myself, after all of my experiences that I went through, which, as I said, we can always jump into later, I tried many different routes to help myself, and nothing turned my world around like NLP did. I would find some of the other practices that I tried, and I'm certainly not knocking anything, but you know, they would help for some time, but then ultimately I would find myself falling back into my old patterns. And that's why I want to explain to you the power of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So essentially, people will come to me because they're wanting different results. Let's focus on self-sabotage, right, specifically. And you don't mind, I'm going to draw a little because it helps me stay on track. I'm very passionate about this, so I can go all over the show in different directions, and this helps me to stay centered, okay? So people come to me because they want different results in life, and what's causing their current sets of results is always going to be linked to our behavior, right? It's a simple law of cause and effect. So now we go one step back and we say, but what's causing my current sets of behaviors? And that actually comes down to your internal state of how you feel. Because we are always in a state, right? We are either in a positive, resourceful, good state, or it's the opposite of that. And then this is where it starts getting interesting. We say, well, what's causing my internal state of how I feel? And that is directly linked to how we internally process things. It's how we internally represent things. So, in other words, you know, the universe will give us all this information. Something will happen. We'll receive all this information, and then it's how we decide to process it, what it means to us, the meaning that our mind attaches to that. But now, Zakia, Zakia, now I'm getting myself all tongue-tied. I'm going to call you call me B, I'll call you Z.
Okay, BZ, we are too busy to be with you. So we call Talisha T. Yeah, so there's TBZ. I don't like the TV anyway.
No. Let's focus on being positive.
It's Zakia.
Okay, thank you.
Zakia.
Thank you.
If you can't pronounce it, call me beautiful.
Oh, I will call you beautiful.
Zakia is a name. Baguette is a beautiful name as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So how we internally represent things is really creating then how we, you know, the lenses through which we are going to view the world, right?
Yeah.
And this is where it comes down to childhood, and why it is often linked there is because of our conditioning. So before I go any further, when I talk about learned behaviors and that, I just really want to make a very important note that it's one of the NLP principles. We are not blaming our parents, our teachers, anybody that was in, you know, in our environment when we were growing up. We have conscious awareness of anything that might have impacted or influenced, but we're not blaming, because blaming will always keep us stuck and disempowered. And that's really important to me. So everybody, one of the NLP principles is that everybody is truly doing the best they can with what they have. Our parents were doing that, their parents were doing that, and so on and so forth. But what gets, what's in our environment growing up is powerful. It's super impactful. And between the ages of 0 and 7, that is actually where we are first feeling all of our emotions. And we are even starting to form our belief system, okay? You know, who we are in the world, how to behave, how to show up. And so you're going to know by the end of this, this interview, you're going to know by the end of this talk show just how powerful your subconscious, a lot of people call it. I'm just going to refer to it as the deeper, it's the unconscious mind. And it simply means that which we are not consciously aware of. That's all. But you're just going to know how powerful it is and how it is actually ruling and driving our whole system. Okay. So if you're following me, I'm going to be putting together this puzzle for all of us listeners. And I want you to imagine for me now that your mind is like Google. All right? Probably not too hard to do, right? I mean, how many windows have you got open? How many tabs are running? We've got all this information coming at us all day long. And it has actually been proven that the latest statistics reveal that we've got 11 million bits of information coming at our senses per second. That's a lot. And of that 11 million bits, what our mind can actually process, manage, hold on to is only between 30 to 50,000 bits of 11 million per second. Can you see how little that is? So why this is important is because how does your mind determine which 30 to 50,000 bits it's going to hang on to differently to my mind? Okay, or anybody else's for that matter. So I always use the analogy of being on a, you know, at the beach, and you look around and every tiny little grain of beach sand is like a bit of information. And so there you are, and you're trying to scoop up as much as you can to hold on to it, and it falls through your arms, and what you're left with is what you can manage and what you can hold on to. And that's what our mind is doing. So how does it do this? It runs this information, it filters it through 3 sets of filters. The first filter, in no specific order, is deletion. It actually deletes information that's not important to you. Maybe you can think about a time where you've been in communication with somebody and, you know, they give you all this information and you hold on to that one thing that they've said. You know, and the responses they're saying, like, really? Are you joking right now? I've given you, like, so much, and you can hold on to that. Okay, so we've done that, yeah.
That is very important what you've said, Baguette.
Yes.
I think most of us do that. And where we would... There's 20 good things that's being said about you. And there's one thing that's not even a negative, but it's not as positive as the other 19. You would hang on to that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know what neuroscience also has told us is that, you know, we have between 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of our thinking is negative. You know, and it doesn't mean that we're just terribly negative human beings. It just means there's reasons why it's doing it, as I've said, and we'll get into that. But it just means that even those thoughts that we start out with that are positive, ultimately the inner critic will talk us out of it. And therefore we have more negative
The inner
thoughts.
critic. And you know, this is a word, I gotta say this because words are very powerful.
Oh, I'm so glad you agree.
You know,
They literally shape our environment, our experience.
shape our experiences.
Everything.
You know, it's the way you say it, it's not what you say, it's how you say it also. So words are very powerful. And I was talking to somebody, and I have to share this, okay?
Yes.
And And we were just having this cool chat, and then she said, and I said to her, look, you need to do this, and you need to do that if you so desire, you know, to make that change. And then she said, I love criticism. And I said, no, we're not talking, I'm not criticizing you. All we're doing is talking about your personal growth and how to adjust.
Yes.
Because criticism is a terrible word.
That is a terrible word.
Yeah.
I prefer feedback.
Feedback, you know? or adjustment, you know, in your life.
Constructive feedback.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so thank you.
But believe me, they all mean the same thing, but it's the way you say it, right?
But that's, yes, exactly.
That's the way you say it.
And that's a
What
prime
you say.
example, though. So thank you for that. 100%, you know, and that's what a lot of us do unconsciously. So that's the first filter. The next filter is distortion. And so let's see, have you ever walked around a corner and you think you see a snake on the floor and it's a black piece of rope? You know, your mind has distorted that. And in communication, well, the same thing happens. That's when we find ourselves, you know, saying in response to somebody, you know, you're having a chat, and next thing you know, they're taking it all wrong, and you go like, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. So their mind has just distorted that information. And I'm going to get to in a minute why the mind does this, because it's very fascinating when you understand why. So the third and final filter that the mind is running, you know, through the information through to get us down to our 30 to 50,000 bits of 11 million bits, is that it generalizes information. So, you know, let's say somebody broke my heart when I was young. I might decide that men are not to be trusted, you know, and I'm going to generalize, you know, and say that everybody's going to leave or hurt me or whatever it might be. Okay. So if you're wondering what makes your mind delete, distort, or generalize in such a way, it is based entirely on the next three items I'm going to speak to you about, and that is your values, your beliefs, and the F word, which is focus. Yes, get your head out the gutter. It's focus, right? So when we think about this, you know, our mind, our values are super important. What we value, what's important to us, is going to determine what the mind is going to hold on to or let go of, you know. If you were driving down the highway and if you weren't particularly interested in how, you know, a car's engine, the deeper working of a car's engine is, then you're not, and you see a big billboard advertising this at the RCC, you're not going to specifically hold on to that information, are you? How much are the tickets, when it is, how, you know, where it is. Your mind will take the information in, but it will delete it. Okay, so that's based on your values, what's important to you. Then our belief system, wow, how powerful. Is our belief system not everything? And when you realize that we're busy forming this from such a young age, it's actually insane. The beautiful thing is new empowering beliefs can be created at any stage of our lives, any age, any stage, and that is neuroplasticity, and that is exciting stuff. We're not hardwired, and we can create positive change whenever we choose to. So when we do the work. And then the third and final is focus, as I spoke about. So what you focus on increases, right? There's so many of those sayings, aren't there? You know, where your focus goes, your energy flows. And it's 100% true. So this is to, are you starting to get the picture, listeners? This is to start helping just to formulate why the mind does what it does. What is it holding on to? What is it letting go of? And what now happens is, I'm going to explain to you the importance of the conscious versus the unconscious mind, if that's okay. Right. Imagine an iceberg, if you will. I'm doing a lot of imagination. You see, we're using our powerful minds this evening. So imagine the picture of, you might have seen this before, it's an iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg is sticking out above the ocean. And let's use the Titanic. What happened in the Titanic? The ship came cruising along, and unfortunately it settled for what it could see, you know, the tip that was sticking out above the surface. And it disregarded how massive the iceberg was, what lay beneath. Now that iceberg represents our mind, and the tip sticking out is what we refer to as our conscious mind. And that makes up a whopping 3%. This is the part of the mind that we're using to make choices and decisions. It is our analytical, logical, thinking part of the mind. You know, this outfit that I chose to wear today, I used my conscious mind. You know, what you chose to eat today, you made that decision consciously, right? The unconscious mind, so it's just sub of that is the subconscious, but as I said, deeper than that is the unconscious mind, and this is where all of our emotions and all of our memories are stored. And this is ruling and this is running the system, okay? So, and it's running it on autopilot. I mean, are you thinking about taking your next breath right now? Do you have to remind yourself? Who's running that for you, right? It's not a conscious decision, it's programs. So there are all sorts of automated programs that are running and in our unconscious awareness, and they're keeping us alive. They really are. I mean, your digestive system, your heartbeat, as I said, everything. And so it really starts getting interesting when we start having that conscious awareness of just how little we are actually consciously in control of. Is that all making sense there? Check it out.
But to me, it most certainly is. And let us know, all of you who are listening in, and you're getting quite drawn into this conversation that we're having. So, you know, that's wonderful, Baguette. And even on Facebook, you know, if you have a comment to make, please do so now. Send us a voice note on 071-613-7803. Now, you know, as I listen to you and as I see your energy, that is so important. You know, when you are around people with this beautiful energy. I mean, everybody who saw you, including Veena ji, the lady who had presented before me, and the moment she looked at you and she said, oh, your aura is so beautiful. And when you meet people like that, you automatically start feeling good. So the question comes on, what's the difference between self-sabotage and simply needing rest or a break?
That's an excellent question. And I think the answer lies in your intention versus outcome. So, you know, when you think about your actual needing rest is important, right? Why do people need to rest? Because we need to feel rejuvenated, you know, so taking some time off, self-love, self-care, pamper day, whatever it might be, is necessary and vital for topping up your energy levels, right? And the outcome of that, you know, is that you normally feel energized, revitalized, right? So that is how we can process and understand your question, which
yes.
just sorry,
which was the difference between self-sabotage and simply needing a rest or a break.
Yes.
So
okay.
I can see, I can just see this, Baguette. You're like so passionate about this. So okay, she asked this question now. I gotta like what? Well, that is beautiful because you talk. And by the way, I didn't see you draw.
Oh yes,
which is great, isn't it?
I love
which is great because you didn't really draw much of what you were saying, which is great. So you know, most times, and I'm not saying all the time, because there are some NLP, some practitioners who talk beautifully without really having the experience, but just going through them, meeting people and all of that. But you have an experience, right?
I do.
And that is something that we really would like to hear. You know, and I think that is what we're seeing here. You can talk to us because of your experience, and I'd like for you to share that personal experience with us.
Absolutely, it would be my pleasure. So the experience that I had takes me back to, we got to start around, when was I? Little spring chicken, age 13. And so growing up, we didn't come from, you know, tons of wealth. We didn't have lots of money, but we had happiness. And one day, quite by chance, I ended up participating in Misamshlanga. This is where the journey begins.
Now we understand the look.
So I was at the Umhlanga festival, and I bumped into one of my friends, and I was actually at the festival with my mom and my aunt, and you know, they're very encouraging, you know, those very encouraging, supportive family members. And so when I bumped into my one friend looking drop dead beautiful, and she said she was doing the Miss Umhlanga, and then the words followed out of her mouth, and I nearly fell over, and she said, "And you must do it with me." And I was like, no. I've never done a pageant before. I have no interest in doing that. And of course, my mom and aunt were like, come on, you know, what have you got to lose? Give it a try. Anyway, next thing I found myself getting, you know, makeup put on, and I was up on stage. And, well, I ended up doing really well. And I also then suddenly realized, hang on a second. So I'm up here, and by answering a few questions and, you know, just having some confidence in yourself, trusting yourself, believing in yourself, you could win all this free stuff. And, you know, I won, besides money, it was always holidays, all expenses paid, sponsorship of shoes and clothes. I mean, any young girl's dream, right? Designer clothes, you name it. And I thought this was fabulous and this was exciting. And so my next pageant, you know, I went and joined into the next one, and so on and so forth. And I ended up actually winning a string of 21 titles at the end of the day. Which I was very blessed and very grateful for. I got to travel a lot of the world that way, and I wouldn't have otherwise been able to. So where this all sort of culminates is the last pageant that I was in, and that was where I was asked to represent South Africa in the Miss Friendship of the World, and that was held in Vietnam.
Okay.
So off I went, a very nervous but excited young girl of 21. And let's just say I had a 2-week, it was amazing, but it was jam-packed. It was exciting, it was non-stop, and again, I did really well. And when I got back, I mean, it was, you know, I was exhausted. However, it was celebration time, and of course, you know, I did exactly that. And then the following day, I got a phone call to say, let's all go out, you know, let's go out this evening, and we want to celebrate too with you. So I always make the joke that I used to suffer from FOMO, fear of missing out, for those of you who might not know. And so against my better judgment, and I say better judgment because there was this feeling inside of me, you know, that I was speaking about that inner voice. It's actually our highest intelligence. It's actually that unconscious mind. Remember I said all our emotions are stored there. And it was saying to me, Birgit, you are exhausted. You have been out. You have been on the go. You need to just stay home and rest, girl. And what do you think I did?
Went out.
Of course, you know, not to miss out. Off I went. And so I, you know, had a fantastic evening with my friends, and celebrate we did. And for any younger listeners, perhaps, please be mindful that I was 21 years old, so I was of the legal age to drink. And, you know, hands up if you've ever made any decisions that you regret, you know. All right, yes, hands up. And so we drank a lot that night. And towards the end of the night, I realized that it was time to get out of there, and I wasn't feeling good at all. So I remember stumbling to the car, and I remember thinking to myself, well, I can't drive. This was also before the time of Ubers and all of that. And so, yeah, we used to do silly things like go out with your own vehicle and then drive home. And so I climbed into the back seat of the vehicle, and I lay down immediately and passed out. Like, that was me done. I'd had too much to drink. Then, what happened after that was just crazy and very sad, actually. Seemed exceptionally sad, because that evening, 3 amazing souls, you know, climbed into this one vehicle, and only 2 got out alive. And what had happened is that we had hit a tree, you know, and I will always maintain this. I do firmly believe that any one of us could have been driving, and we would have no doubt had the same result. So the next thing that I remember is sort of coming around, waking up, and just really being confused, and everything was dark, and I couldn't see because I couldn't open my eyes. I had a feeling, you know, vague feeling that something terrible had happened, but I wasn't sure. And I was relying on now my sense of hearing because I couldn't see. And I remember distinctly feeling cold for some reason. I just remember feeling cold. And then I heard the noises, you know, those beeping noises on the machines in the hospital. And I didn't realize it was life support that I was on at the time. Anyway, that was just a sort of fleeting moment, and then I was just sort of, I was gone again. And that's just a little memory that I have. Later, when it was explained to me, you know, what had happened, you know, it hit me massively. The very fact that someone had lost their life. And what I then learned was that I had lost my face, because I had taken all of the impact on my face. Because I was lying down, my face was, you know, the front of my face was facing forward behind the passenger seat. My feet were up behind the driver's seat. Mm-hmm. And as we hit the tree, my face hit the back of the seat, and with the impact, it's pushed my nose inside of my head. It was flat from cheekbone to cheekbone. The surgeon said there, you know, you could put a piece of paper there. I had crushed my eye sockets. I had broken my cheekbones, were all crushed. I'd broken my jaw, and I'd split my palate in between my front two teeth. It had popped wide open to the back. And really, the only thing that was intact was my forehead, you know. And luckily, miraculously, I didn't lose my eyes. They were fine. And looking in the mirror, and I wasn't allowed to do that for quite some time, but when I eventually did, and I just had absolutely no idea who this was looking back at me. It was astounding and terrifying at the same time. And I just didn't recognize myself. And so when I say that my self, you know, sort of worth, your ego, everything just took a knock, and it took a tumble and a dive. I just spiraled all the way down the rabbit hole. And especially, I think, you know, for anybody facing that, it would have been tough, but possibly more so because of the fact that my face at the time had been my fortune. What with, you know, winning, being, you know, Miss whatever it was that I had won. So that for me was, the hardest thing I've experienced to date. And of course then began the long journey and back to self, essentially. Because then what followed was, over the next sort of 1.5 to 2 years, was reconstructive surgeries, where they put double the amount of titanium pins in my face to hold it together. Some bone graft. They actually used my modeling photographs in order to be able to see what I used to look like, because they had no idea how to put me to, what were they even trying to do here. You know, they had nothing to go by, so they used my photographs, and well, let's just say I'm very grateful to today and very blessed, and I don't think they did such a bad job either.
Well, neither do we, actually.
Just to lighten up the conversation
We
a little.
wouldn't have known that, you know, with you. You got your face back.
Absolutely, and so much more than that.
So that's what I was going to say. You know, you got your face back. Did you get all of your self-confidence back?
Oh, yes, but it took a long time. It really did. And that is how I can truly, you know, speak about being in the trenches and having experienced usually most of what people come to me for their own coaching to work through. Because it wasn't only in that. There's been many other things, but we don't have enough time on this show to go through that. So we're just going to focus on this one for now.
Do you still have the titanium?
Yes.
You do?
I will have them forever.
Okay, so
Yes.
which part of your face do you have them in?
Oh, everywhere.
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah, I
Okay.
have them under my eyes,
Yeah.
in my nose, through
Yeah.
everywhere, just except for my forehead. So if you looked at my X-rays, it actually looks like a little dot to dot,
Yeah.
one of those.
A
they're
little
just
robot.
everywhere. Yes,
Yeah, there you go.
exactly, exactly.
So,
that.
do you feel anything, any different?
Luckily, no. I don't. In terms of, so I don't feel the pins, but are you asking if I feel different visually?
No,
Like when I look at
not
myself? Oh.
visually. I'm just asking if you don't
Okay.
feel the pins,
No,
you know.
luckily
So there's no
not.
discomfort
I
or
am
anything.
so lucky.
Oh, you are.
And I
You're
do not.
absolutely
I always get
blessed.
asked this. Do you set off the alarm? The
At
alarms
the
at
airport. Do
I
you?
do not. Luckily, it's titanium, so no.
Yeah, so you won't. Oh, that's amazing.
Yes.
That you didn't have a face, and you think it's out of a movie, because we've seen movies like that, right?
Sure,
So
absolutely.
yes, but since you put that idea in my head, is there a difference in your look from before that to now?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
And in the eye of the beholder, right? So of course, as I'm really well aware, we are our own worst critics.
Yes.
And yes, when I look at myself, I can absolutely see the differences. I notice all of it,
Yeah.
but I don't focus on it, because if I were to do that, well, of course, it's just going to increase and enhance and drag me back into the old, negative ways. So no. I shift my focus now that I know how. And yes, and that's something that I love equipping and teaching and in my coaching is how we can use these tools.
So I'm sure, people who are watching you live on our Facebook page now, they're going to scrutinize. Just put your face there a little bit. There she goes.
Here I am.
and that face she didn't have.
No.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm saying this, and I know I can talk this through with you, because
absolutely.
you've been there, you've spoken about it, so often,
Yes.
and it really would make us all feel so much more comfortable in our own skin, especially with you. That is figuratively and otherwise speaking
Yes.
as well. And yet here you are, and obviously not having the. There would be slight changes, and I'm hoping it's slight changes
Yes.
to your face. But the thing is, forget when you, like I say, when you walked in, all we could see. I mean, I know Talisha had mentioned that. Wow, something about being from out of the pages of a Miss South Africa kind of thing. So, so obviously, she noticed that. We didn't, the story. I didn't know
No.
that you
Okay.
had just told me about your accident. One of your friends, by the way, had very quickly mentioned to me that you're having her coming in today, and she's so powerful. She's going to tell you about the accident. We didn't have time to talk about the accident. I'm glad we didn't, because now it's this beautiful story that you are saying to us, a story from your life. Basically, they usually say 180 degrees. Yours did a 360. And that's exactly what it did. This is so powerful as we speak to you, Baguette, because how many of us look in the mirror and with our faces, and we make comparisons to the face of somebody else? Oh, they have such a beautiful nose. I wish I had a fuller lip.
Absolutely.
I mean, my eyes are a bit
Sure.
whatever. We self-sabotage is just criticizing yourself. The best way to get there is to start criticizing yourself.
So true. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting for me while we're on that subject, because to build my nose, which looks very different now to what it used to, I used to have quite a sharp sort of nose,
Oh, okay.
which changes your features quite a
Sure,
bit.
yeah.
But they took cartilage out of from my ribs to actually, this is all rib cartilage that you see. And I mean, I can't say it enough how blessed. I know that. I really am. But yes, we look at ourselves through that magnifying glass, and we're so mean to ourselves. And I often say, when you catch yourself speaking that way to yourself, ask yourself the question: would you speak to your best friend like that? Would you tell them, and point out all their flaws and be so negative if they were going through a hard time? You would not. I'm quite sure you would not. And yet somehow we find that it's okay, or we feel that it's okay to speak to ourselves this way, and it's not okay. It's not okay. So self-love, and as we spoke about earlier, you know, when I talk about filling your own cup, knowing how is really important. And I don't like to say, you know, because the saying goes, we can't pour from an empty cup. I don't believe that we should just keep our cup full so that we can keep giving from what's inside. I believe that we should keep our cup so full that it begins to overflow, and you only give from the overflow, and you keep what's inside of that cup for you, because that is necessary. And that's when we learn, you know, the real beautiful language of self-love and self-care. And speaking about comparing and measuring yourself in today's world with social media, wow, it has never been so crazy. The low self-esteem, the youth, my heart goes out to as well, because it's this constant, it doesn't actually matter what age you are, but it is this constant comparing and measuring. And when people are ahead of you, you feel left behind and you beat yourself up. I should be there, should it, you know, but it's this natural law of relativity, comparing and measuring. And when we look at someone who's worse off than us, then we might feel like, oh, sure, so glad I'm not them, you know. But either way,
but it's only fleeting.
Right? And either way, we're comparing and measuring, but the natural law states to remove that scale. Just stop with the comparing and measuring. Remove the scale and focus on you, because you are doing your own journey in your own time and in your own style that is unique to you, and that is perfect. We place far too much pressure on ourselves. You know, this whole thing of perfectionism. You know, that's often a huge reason why people self-sabotage as well, is, you know, perfectionism, these ridiculously high, unachievable standards, and perfection is the enemy of progress.
So there you go. Perfection is the enemy of progress. That's beautiful. Is that yours?
I
Or
don't
is that
think
another
so.
saying?
You know, I've read so much. I don't know. I might have come across it.
We just sponge off it.
I can't remember. Yes,
but also,
part of my vocabulary now.
for those of you who are listening to Baguette and you're listening to the strong woman tell a story, what are your feelings right now? Send us a voice note. Let us know what your feelings are. Baguette, you'd like to hear.
I'd love to hear.
After your story, that empowering story, what are you thinking right now? Send your voice notes to 071-613-7803. You can see Baguette on our Facebook page. You've heard a story. She's got a new face. I don't know how different it is from your old face, but you've got a new face. You actually got a new lease, so to speak.
That's right. And absolutely. And a new identity, if I can take it that far.
Right.
Because this powerful unconscious mind of ours has an absolute need to remain in alignment with the identity that we give ourselves. You know, and by that I mean the story we're telling ourselves. Again, it all comes down to that self-talk. And so when I went through this whole journey, you know, learning how to actually, it gave me a new lease on life, yes.